Cocaine in my nose, they got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, they got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, they got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though. Cocaine in my nose, they got rose in my cup, though. Started climbing my phone, she got me locked in on cup, though.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
Literally a guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that beautiful lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name.
Hello everybody, welcome back to PSGL. It is that time of the year again where there's a new F1 game out, and we're going to be the ones to bring you some of the action from the early social races of the Season 34 season. Of course, this is nothing serious just yet. This is a couple of, well, 20 drivers getting onto a grid, learning the new game, giving it a test around a circuit that's been modified from previous years, and just all in all, having a great time. We're going to be having a great time tonight as well, Reese. My name is, of course, George. As you can see, this is Reese. We're going to be bringing you the action. It's been a while since we've been on cameras together, but how have you been, and are you enjoying F1 23 at this moment in time?
Well, I can't speak for the F1 23 because moving countries, I don't have a computer. So I have a laptop, and that is what I'm running on. But from the clips I've seen, it's looking very interesting. The dynamics of the game, it's very similar to 22. A few adjustments, but one thing that does come apparent is, of course, the fact that the new tracks are in, the new liveries, the new skins, everything that we expect from 23 is coming through, and red flags finally.
Yeah, I'm unsure as to the how red flags are going to end up working in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I'm definitely interested to see how it plays out and what sort of strategy it can throw into the mix. I haven't really had too much of a chance to play the game. As of the moment, I've been doing far too much endurance racing, not enough F1 racing recently. But as I have been told, and from the little experience hands-on that I've got, handling models much improved, tracks feel much better. Apparently, tyre strategy is potentially even a little bit more open than just the medium, hard, medium that we saw throughout all of F122. So, you know, these things are kind of culminating into being quite the interesting event. So I'm definitely very excited to see how F123, even in its very early state, plays out. Because if you recall last time round in F122, we had a whole handling model overhaul and all sorts of stuff to when the game first launched. So we shall have to see how this one plays out. We are actually about to get into Spain, though. We're just counting down now. A couple of drivers waiting to ready themselves up, and then we will be well on our way. We've got a stacked grid here, by the way, Reese. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at who's inside the lobby. Anyone that you're keeping your eye out on for a bit of improvement, maybe, from 22?
There's a few names that immediately catch my name. Andrew Lopez, you've got Ian Van Unen, Rishan Jacobs. There's a load of names that I am very familiar with. Thomas Gall, Louise Welch. I think all these guys, at least I have worked with them, but I think the biggest name of them all is Daniel Keltson, and he's a man you want to keep an eye out, because if he's going all out today, you're going to have a great time with battles, and you're going to enjoy the aggression that comes out of him.
Well, I'm happy to report that we don't have to wait any longer. It's time for Q1 here. Eventually, by the way, this will load in. Just give it a second. There we go. That is very loud on board. I will definitely have to fix that. I have been playing around with these audio settings, but unfortunately they're not quite perfect just yet. Let's go audio settings. Let's just tune the master volume down one, and that should be enough. Perfect. Okay, so out on track. Almost everybody making their way through these first corners. This is going to be very exciting. I am super excited. I think that F122 is probably one of the poorer iterations of the F1 game that we've had in quite some time. So I'm definitely excited to see things returning to a position in which they're looking quite good. Close friend of mine wrote an article reviewing F123 recently for Gfinity, rated it an 8 out of 10, which is pretty good as far as I'm concerned for an F1 game.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good for a rating overall, an 8 out of 10. But the one thing I want to point out and notice is I've seen quite a few clips of the drivers complaining about oversteer with the game mechanics, a few of them drifting around. So we might be seeing some people taking it to the streets of Tokyo and seeing what they can pull out today with the rear end kicking out. But I guess that could be down to the setups. Of course, we're early stages setups. There's going to be more and more to adapt with, and over time, we're slowly going to see these drivers fine-tune those setups, and eventually have that no rear end problems.
Yeah, indeed. I have been seeing a little bit of that, actually. Lots of people snapping around at the rear. But we have got one of the first drivers out on track at the moment who is currently on a lap. That will be Daniel Kjeldsen, just like you had prefaced. He's one of your guys to watch here in the Alpine today. So let's see exactly what he can cook up in this first lap. Obviously, as he is the first driver around the first sector, that is going to be a purple sector one. But for the time being, everything looks relatively smooth here from Daniel. No rear stepping out, which is something that you've already highlighted, is something that we need to be keeping an eye on. So let's take a look around this this Barcelona Circuit de Catalunya to see exactly what is cooking. Up the top of the hill at turn 9, often been a bit of a spot historically in previous F1 games in which the rear can get a bit slidey, depending on the setup, and I can't imagine that this early stage of the game we are optimized on setups yet. But of course, the newly reprofiled turn 10, 11, and the big change for F123, we saw it a couple of weeks ago in the real life, is one of the most famous corners in two-wheeled motorsport. Turn 15 here at Barcelona, it's almost completely flat, and it's around the corner that they go for Daniel Kjeldsen to set the first time of F123 here in the lower divisions. It is a 1:11.079.
Yeah, I've got a massive feeling this is going to go a lot lower, as already Thomas Gal is going to do a 1:10.7. I've got that gut feeling, and I know it's going to sound like a long shot. We're going to be seeing 109s here, as again, the time gets beaten by Sergio Sabrino, another strong name in the pack. There are some strong drivers here. We're talking these guys are tier 2, tier 3, and I think we got odd 1 or 2s in tier 4, but majority of those are tier 2, tier 3.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we just had another one pop up to the top of the timing screens. It's Siriano, Mirko Siriano in the Ferrari. Just pops in another 10.7, just a couple of hundredths faster than Sergio Sabrino. Tycho Hardy comes across the line for a 10.9. Got a couple of other drivers who are also going to be challenging here shortly. We've got Miklavcic, Primoz Miklavcic. He's on a lap currently. Coming into the second sector, or more towards the point, exiting the second sector. He's got a McLaren up ahead of him. Hopefully that's not going to get in his way too much. I'm not quite sure who that is, but it does provide at least a little bit of a slipstream. Whether that is any consolidation for Miklavcic, I don't know, but turn 10 looks good. Everything looking nice and tidy. I'm seeing that there was a yellow flag in sector 2 and 3, but I am aware of the fact that that could have just been somebody going very slowly to let another car by. We'll see exactly how it ends up playing, though, as it affected Miklavcic on this lap. Well, over the line, it's going to be 9th position, a 1:11 dead, pretty much. Just a few hundredths of a second behind Timo Zelenkovic. So, all the times getting put in on across the board now. Leonard Goetze seems to have resolved some of his connectivity issues and is now fully into the session. Louis Welch has yet to go out on the track either. So, first runs in. And definitely a couple of names that I'm unfamiliar with. Maybe that's because they're tier 2 names or somewhere around tier 4. But Mirko Siriano, not really a familiar face to me, but very impressed to see such a stonking lap time to open up proceedings.
Absolutely, and if you look at the spread of the grid as well, like, everyone is fairly close. There's only a second between 1st and 16th, and that is massive. So today's show race, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be super competitive, because normally when you get a show race, it's a little bit off pace. It never is kind of like all together, as Roshan is going to find himself P9 with a 1:11.022. But yeah, a lot of the time you find there is quite a big spread in kind of a show race, but today, absolutely not. It is all tight, all competitive, and everyone being quite, I'd say, quite confident with those lap times as well.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with that. I think Roshan there, by the way, just did 2 laps on those tyres. I think he kind of screwed up the first one, so took it a little bit cooler, and then 18 seconds quicker on the second time round. That's why he's now out of sync with the rest of the field in terms of the qualifying runs here in Q1. But let's just take a look at this. This is Q1. This is 3-part qualifying. So, do we think that the current pole position time, the provisional pole time, of course, of a 10.727, is that going to be enough to secure Siriano through into Q2? Where do you think the cutoff is going to be here, Reese?
Realistically, I think the cutoff, you'd have to dip into the 110s. Is 100% your safety net. But I think if you're going to be safe, 110.9 would be, 110.8. That would be a safety net. You'd be happy with that. But I think, yeah, 110 is going to be the cutoff, because I'm sure these drivers can find that extra second or tenths of seconds and slowly creep their way up. And I know all these drivers are capable for it. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that's what I see from this situation.
Okay, well, I'm hopping on with Leonard Goetze now. He has been somebody that I have commentated on in the past, and when I did commentate on him back at the start of F122, he was a mightily impressive driver who almost immediately got promoted into the division above. We'll see if that same crest that he was riding can be carried into F123. I'm excited for him. A driver that I've really enjoyed watching previously. Very clean in his racecraft as well. Often a qualifying demon. So we'll see whether that can come into fruition here for his first lap out here at the Spanish Grand Prix. It's an interesting time to be a gamer. And there it is, the snaps of oversteer that we were seeing. I was just about to say it's an interesting time to be a gamer with all these new handling models and feeling different in these cars. Apparently it does feel much better than last year, but still not quite as perfect as everyone wants it to be with the oversteer that you've mentioned. But I'm seriously enjoying seeing these opening laps. And Goetze at the moment is not too far off the pace. Obviously not troubling with purple sectors, but everything currently for Goetze is a personal best. keeping it nice and tight here through turn 11. Now he's just got to try and smash it round these final couple of corners. It is very, very fast. Is there going to be a lift? Oh, holds it in 5th. Slight lift on the entrance, and that should fire him to the line. Only to go 15th. Not a perfect lap for Goetze. 11.2. He'll definitely need to improve. But at the moment, we've got people at the top of your timing screens on laps. Sergio Sabrino looking to try and start his lap here, I believe. Yeah, okay, it was. That was the outlap finishing. We got Andres Franco, who leaps to the top of the timing screens with a 10.721. Just 6 thousandths faster. But Sergio Sabrino on that lap, Reese, why don't you take us through it?
Yeah, I'll try my best as we are going through turns 3 now. It's a very long right-hander. You just got to keep the power down. And if the car's not balanced right, you're going to go off the track. Through turn 4, where we had the lovely crash between the two Mercedes. And then as we swing it round turn 5, it's very easy for drivers to invalidate on the exit. So Sabrino keeping it within the white lines. It's all looking quite smooth at the moment. But again, another difficult section is turns 7 and 8. And then through turn 9, again, keep it within those white lines, and it's looking promising. I can't see if he's improving. He's up on his time, so he needs to find something in the 3rd sector, and it is possible, but being 3rd place, there isn't much stress for Sabrino here. He doesn't have to push at full pelt as he comes through the the old section of turn 15 and decide 13 and goes into the pits instead.
Yeah, that wasn't great. He had a couple of moments there in the final sector. A few snaps of oversteer off the exit turn 11, and then again on the turn into turn 12. So not looking too pretty there for Sergio Sabrino. But, I mean, there are other drivers on the lap, so let's take a look at what Ian Van Unen is currently up to. He is 0.4 of a second now, 3 seconds off this lap, so that's not going to be the one that he's going to be going for. What about Antoine Dezalewski? What's he cooking with? I don't believe that's a particularly quick lap time either, so let's try another driver. Roshan Jacobs, you got anything for us? Of course, your first lap out wasn't particularly perfect, and then you had a second run on those tyres. So let's see what fresh tyres can do for the young Dutchman. So far, turn 3, an extremely difficult corner to keep with your setup, like you mentioned. It's all about balance. It's all about commitment. It's a lot of this early opening sector here as well. Turn 4, how early do you dare get on the power? Same for turn 5. You want to keep waiting, but you also want to make sure you keep it within those track limits. It's that balancing act that you were talking about, Reese. Now, turn 7, 8, very easy to have an accident on with those big sausage curbs at the inside. Turn 9, all about the commitment. How brave are you? Roshan leaving lots of margin there on the exit, but it did look smooth, and it certainly looks quick. He is 2 tenths up on his previous best time, and at the moment, on this pace, this would slot him in at around 5th position. Definitely over that 110 threshold that we were looking at earlier on. Now, in towards the final couple of corners. He's just got to keep it committed. Be brave. Be fearless, Roshan. And now drive it to the line. What's it going to be? It is going to be a new provisional pole time. The Alfa Romeo's on top with a 10.707.
Realistically, I think these times for thresholds are going to get even lower. There we go, the Ferrari putting it at 1 minute 10.5, so we're into the 1:10.5s. And I said we could might be seeing the 109s later on, especially in Q3. We'll be seeing that unfold. But yeah, I think we're going to be looking at a 1:10.8 as the threshold for being knocked out of Q1.
Yeah, I think maybe you could be right, especially if the track is starting to ramp up with Mirko Soriano finding 2 tenths of a second effectively over everybody else on the field right now. That's indicative that the track is getting there. We'll see whether Tomas Gau has got anything. No, he was like slightly up on his time, but has elected to go into the pit lane. Louis Welch on his in-lap, I believe. Andre Lopez is trying to cook something up right now. 1.5 tenths up over his previous best time. Going to throw it through these final sequence of corners and see what he can come across the line with. In the Mercedes, driving towards that finish line, it puts him into 4th place. It is just over a 10th improvement, so that puts him past that 10.8 threshold that you were looking at as well. So just to be clear, that is 1/10 of a second covering currently P2 to P7. This is a close grid right here.
again, still the spread between the field is, I was about to say it's a second, it's now less than that. We're talking 0.8 of a second between first and 19th right now. That is how close these guys are, and it only takes a mild, minute mistake. It could be the slightly wrong gear that you've shifted in, or you've elongated a gear for a little bit too long, or short shift, anything like that. The way you turn in, that's going to make and break today's qualifying session.
Another driver in Andrei Tarabukin slots into that 110.7 band. That is now, I think, 7 drivers who are currently sitting in that. That's P2 all the way down to P8 at the moment. It is just Louis Welch who's gatekeeping that one in P9 currently. But who else is on a lap? Daniel Kjeldsen has invalidated this one. We'll see. It seems that Primoz Miklavčić is not doing anything on this lap either. Leonard Gertz back out on track, but the red light is flashing, which indicates to me that he's not really pushing. So, anyone who is cooking? No. I think this is where we're going to get the quiet before the storm. The storm being the final run round. If you didn't notice, by the way, because I most certainly didn't, Sergio Sobrino improves his lap time here with going into the 110.6 category. Still, I think that's going to leave him relatively safe. So he and Suriano, if they didn't want to go out for a second run, or third run, sorry, in Q1 here, I think that would be quite understandable. Beyond McKee has also just joined up to the session, so welcome to the Irishman. Hopefully there's a lap on the cards for them towards the end of this one.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a couple of drivers I'm a little surprised about. Okay, yeah, we have to remember this is a show race. Not everyone's going to be pushing 100%. A few of them definitely don't want to show all their cards on the table. They're not going to be a case of, yeah, let's just go all out. But Daniel Kjeldsen, and thank you for changing to him, down in P12 in the 110.9, it was also going extremely slow, so less there's damage on that.
I think he had an accident or a little moment at turn 13 there, because he was coming back onto the circuit. I saw that there was like yellow flags in the third sector, and he was dotted about on the final corner with another car overtaking him. So I was a little bit surprised to see that. But whatever happened to Daniel Kjeldsen, he had a bit of an off-track excursion there, fella.
Yeah, and he's now at risk as well. The being P12, he's in the firing line, and he's got to get back to the pits. I don't think he actually has enough time.
I don't think he does either.
Yeah, the yellow flag goes away. 2 minutes. Ooh. If he pushes it now, he could... No, he can't. No, realistically, he's out of the session. So P12, Daniel Kjeldsen, the man I just hyped up, is in this firing line of going out in Q1.
Okay, apparently it's not full quali. Apparently it's a little glitch, by the way. So it says Q1, but this is actually just a short qualifying format.
Oh.
So there's no Q1 involved. So this is it now, Reese. This is the final shootout for pole position. Forget everything we've been prefacing. Thank you, Connor Nathan, for putting that in the chat. I really do appreciate that. I did have a little feeling. I was like, wait, I swear Q1 isn't normally 18 minutes. I swear that's a short qualifying format.
Yeah, I was getting that feeling as well, but then I kind of just looked past it. I thought Q1. Oh, finally, I get to do one of these. Yeah. I was hyped for it. But even so, Sobrino in the perfect position to try and nab the pole position here. But both Alfa Romeos, look at that, P3 and P4. I know they're not teammates as for such. You can clearly see they're not teammates even in league, in organization bases. But that little mindset, when you have the same colors on, you do naturally just end up bonding with them. You work together in a sense. So it will be interesting to see how both Alfa Romeos pull out the final run of this qualifying.
Yes, most definitely. And speaking of helping your teammates there, Red Bull nearly getting in the way of Red Bull. Tycho Hardy really trying to hustle on in this lap, and I think he's overcooked it there into turn 10. So this will probably be a redo. I saw the red light come on. He's recharging the battery. He's going to have to go for a second run on these tyres. Andras Franco with a 5 place grid penalty. Never mind, I think Tycho Hardy's going to give it up there. That's P13 for him. Let's have a look then at Suriano starting his final flying lap here in Barcelona. Currently on provisional pole, just under 1/10 of a second ahead of P2. It has been a strong showing from the Ferrari driver for the first part of this qualifying session, but can he top it off? It's not about how you start, Reese. It's all about how you finish. And so far, Soriano has started very, very well. But now through turn 3 and into turn 4, he's found just 7 thousandths of a second through those first 3 and 4 corners. Now coming down the hill in towards turn 5. Turn 6 is barely even a corner. You're just going to flick the car through it, take the shortest distance possible, and then get back out wide for turn 7. Then flick back right for 8. Hope the car sticks to the ground here for turn 9. It's as flat as you dare to take it. Be brave and be bold. He's done exactly that. DRS now open on the run into the widened turn 10. He's now 800ths of a second up on his previous best time. This is going to be an improvement. Are we going to see a 110.4 here for Mirko Soriano? Well, turn 11 looked good, but that's a snap on the rear on the exit. Now into turn 12 and 13. Can he carry that speed through, or did that little snap of oversteer ruin the entire lap for him? Soriano driving to the line. It is an improvement. Not as much as he would have hoped, but it's still an improvement, a consolidation of that first place. Sabrino in the pits and out of the session. Now it's up to Tomas Gal. What has Tomas Gal got? Currently sitting in P3. Lap is looking tidy, but that Aston Martin needs to get out of his way. Oh, that's compromised him all the way into turn 9. That will compromise him all the way in towards turn 10 down this straight. The lights are flashing on the back of the car, and I think Tomas Gal's given up on that one. What about Zelenkovic? Anything to be challenging here? No, he's out of it too, not on a lap, and that leaves it all done and dusted. Mirko Soriano is on pole here in the social race.
Wow, Siriano pulling out the laps today. I don't think he's holding back like I was mentioning earlier. He's going all out today, making sure that he makes a statement in the social race. Maybe trying to capture the eyes of the top tiers and say, look, I'm ready to fight today. I'm ready to put on a show. And both Alfa Romeos, P4, P5, which is very surprising to see two teammates sat right next to each other.
Yes, indeed. Okay, then. We'll go for a little advert break in a minute, but let's just have a quick overview of the session. Anybody who particularly surprised you here, Reese? I know you mentioned before Daniel Kjelsen not really performing up to your expectations.
Yeah, Theon McKee also down quite low, Andrew Crappy low, Laminen quite low. But I think the surprise really comes about with Rishan Jacobs. Now, don't get me wrong, Rishan is such a fantastic driver in the tiers that I have worked with him.
Oh, I've lost you. Your audio's all gone. Don't know what's happened there. So I'm going to go to a little ad break while I try and get Reese back. I think he's pulled out his mic cable because I can see him talking, but he's not making any noise. So we'll go to a little advert. We'll be back in just a moment. See you on the other side. I don't know whether Reese is there. We just had the length of that ad break to figure it out. Can you talk?
I can
There we
talk here.
go.
I do apologise to the viewers, mate. Thought I had good internet. It's dipping in and out, so...
No, I don't think that was internet. I think you couldn't hear me at the same time as well, because you were just carried on talking and I was talking too, so I don't know what was happening there.
No, I couldn't hear anything. Well, the question I have, do we have formation laps on today?
I don't know. I heard a whispering that maybe that would be the case. They were going to at least test it out from what I heard in the group chat for this particular race. We'll soon find out, because waiting for players to get into the lobby right now, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Maybe we'll see a formation lap. Maybe that will give us some time to pre-face some key areas. But let's take a look at the Barcelona track as a whole for a second, Reese. With the recent changes towards turns 12 and 13, removing that absolutely disgusting, putrid, all the words that mean bad on the planet, chicane that used to exist. Yeah, we have got a formation lap. That is cool. Okay, we'll hop into that at least. So with that little, that chicane that used to exist there, Reese, and now that it doesn't, are we thinking it's going to provide more opportunity for overtaking? I've already seen from a few initial pieces of gameplay that DRS in F123 here is extremely potent.
I think this is going to create some great opportunity. If we take the real world F1 and what that produced, that definitely spiced up the racing for sure. So now with no chicane, drivers are able to stay closer. It's gonna, if you get damage, it's definitely gonna be a pain in the neck. 'Cause you're gonna have to lift a lot more, and you're gonna take even more of a toll if you do decide to stay out. But realistically, I think we're going to have overtake galore. The only bit I feel now that they need to work on Spain is maybe trying to see if the turn 10 overtake could be a bit more viable and more of an opportunity to overtake. But
Right.
that would be my only criticism about this track now, because they've made it good. They've made it, you know, I'm not complaining about this track anymore. So let's see what the racing comes out as.
Yeah, I mean, turn 10 being elongated, I think, made it so it was less of an aggressive braking zone, which is probably what you generally want for big overtaking opportunities. Anyway, here we have a quick look at the game, at least, prediction for tyres. We can actually have a quick look at that, I think. For the moment, we'll extend this out. I know it looks pretty big and takes up a lot of the screen, but we'll at least take a look at the tyre allocations for the moment here with everybody in the grid while we've got a minute. It is everybody except for the 2 Alpines and Fionn McKee starting on the hard tyres. Now, historically, on different F1 games, Spain was a particularly high degradation track, and that might explain why we're seeing this tyre strategy here from all the drivers. One thing I will also mention, though, is that whether that has changed with the final 2 corners, I don't really think that is the case. I still think it's quite a high deg track. So I think we're likely going to try and see people here going for the one-stop strategy from hard to medium, medium to hard.
Oh yeah, 100%, and we're going to be seeing them come in roughly around about, I'd say lap 16 to 18, maybe 16 to 20. Being the...
If people are getting disqualified from the session here, I have a feeling this might be a session restart.
No, it's positioning. It's the positioning. If you go too far, it will disqualify you and push you to the furthest back point of the grid slot. So you've got to make sure you line up on the grid correctly. The lights are out and we're already racing.
Okay, I don't know whether that's people actually being disqualified or not, but we'll soon see how it all pans out. Mirko Soriano immediately pulls to the inside for turn 1. It's coming up, and there's nobody on the inside of him. The McLaren of Sergio Sobrino can't get close. A bit of a gap opening in the midfield. One of the Red Bulls there taking to the exit road on turn 2. Now, round turn 3. Got to keep it a little bit careful on the opening lap. Tyres may still be a little bit cool, and you're on those hards as well. They don't offer nearly as much grip as the soft tyres from qualifying used to on those long radius corners. The Alpha Tauri of Tomas Gal is up in the picture, but it seems that Andres Frenko, who qualified up in, I think, 5th place, has had an accident on lap 1, or something has happened because he's down in P17. Louis Welch has also dropped towards the back of the field. He's definitely had an accident. In fact, I think we can go back and take a look. He's had a spin somewhere. It's brought out a virtual safety car. There must be some debris on the track or something. Must have got a bit cluttered there in towards turn 4 and 5. So it seems that we do have a VSC for the moment, but I mean that was a pretty brave opening there from Mirko Soriano, immediately darting straight away to the right hand side of the track, trying to cover off the charging Sergio Sobrino in the McLaren, and did so expertly, if I must say so.
Well, first of all, it actually says virtual safety car. You can tell what it says as a viewer. But I want to point out, look at P9, Fionn McKee, capitalizing on those medium tires. He was down in the gutter near the rear of the pack, and he's up in P9. He's worked his way up. And I told you, I was a little disappointed of his qualifying position, and that's Fionn McKee in the way he races. Moves his way up through the grid and done a fantastic job as the virtual safety car ends, and now he's going to put some pressure onto Daniel Keltsen. But again, Keltsen, he will make sure he positions that car in an awkward place. I saw him race, I think it was Abu Dhabi, against Thomas Laminen, who actually is retired from this session. Them two had it out for each other, and the attacking and defending on both sides is phenomenal. So this might be a while before Fionn McKee can get past Keltsen.
Well, I think additionally to that, it may also be a factor that they're both on the medium tyres, so they're both going to be looking to make aeons worth of progress. That's a Mercedes off in the background. That's Andrei Tarabukin getting it all kinds of wrong on the exit of turns. And how has he kept that out of a wall? He went off there at turn 9 at some speed into the gravel trap and somehow has managed to keep that out of a wall. That is really impressive driving there from Andrei Tarabukin. Been playing a lot of dirt rally by the looks of things, but
You took it out of my mouth there. I was about to say the man's playing Dirt Rally and decided he's going to become a rally driver. Wow, yeah, how? How do you keep that car after so fast? And I think we got another
Oh, he retired
retirement.
anyway. Oh, that's a shame.
Ah.
Oh, that's a real shame. Oh man. Anyway, like I was saying, back with the medium tyre runners, Kjeldsen and McKee, they're both going to be looking to make a big amount of progress here with these medium tyres. I think the expression that I pick a lot of the time when I talk about this tyre strategy is they've got to make hay whilst the sun shines. And those medium tyres, they won't be good for very long here. Obviously, the hards will eventually outlast them. That's a bit of contact there between Kjeldsen and Zelenkovic. Zelenkovic not giving any quarter towards the charging Kjeldsen, and he's not going to take no for an answer either. He's going to keep knocking on Zelenkovic's door to try and get past now on the run into turn 10. He's going to have to try and do it on the brakes, but I don't think he's really going to have the speed. He's going to go for it anyway. It's contact. Forces his way through. Both drivers are off the track. McKee will see that and go, thank you very much, Daniel. I'll take that place away from Timo Zelenkovic, and now I'll set my sights on you, because you're about to be a second behind Andre Lopez. That's going to leave you without DRS if you can't get this corner right, and now I might have an opportunity to get by. Unfortunately for McKee, Kjeldsen does manage to grapple onto that DRS from the back of Andre Lopez, but Timo Zelenkovic is not going to be happy in the slightest about how that move was done.
Yeah, you know I said about Kjeldsen being aggressive? Well, there you go, ladies and gents. He just goes for it. You leave him a slight bit of gap, he's going to go for it. He learned from Edson Senna brilliantly. And there, you just saw, just before you changed the camera, he's positioning that car to hold off McKee. He knew he aggressed too far and has brought himself back into the line of fire against McKee. Halliday has just got past Rishan Jacobs as well. So that's been a swap of positions. And in a situation which I would say is putting Halliday in such a prime position here. I always like to say third place is better than being in third position for the train is better than being in second or first. Because if the front two start to fight, which they are going to come the pit stop phase, he is in the prime position to pick up the scraps.
Absolutely, I think you could be right on that one. But for the moment there, at the start of the lap, Sabrino was definitely a little bit closer towards Soriano, but now Soriano's picked up the pace in that second half of the lap and has managed to extend the gap. But with DRS, once again, that 7/10 of a second advantage that Soriano had built up over the last lap is going to evaporate. Halliday was looking mighty in the rear-view mirrors there of Sabrino, but not offering a challenge just yet. Now, round turn 3, these guys will be taking it nice and easy on their tyres at this stage, I would hope. And there is a gap opening up as well here. I think Andre Lopez is just losing touch to these front 5. They've got a little bit of a pace advantage here, and he is very, very quickly about to find himself in a wide ocean with no DRS to save him. So he has those medium runners behind as well, let's not forget. So they're going to be looking to try and make their mark on this race as well.
Yeah, Lopez is in kind of like that slight no man's land. Yes, he's got a driver behind him of McKee, but he's about 8 tenths behind. Lopez is then himself 8 tenths behind Thomas Gal. So he's got the DRS, but he is in that danger zone, as we have seen McKee get past Kjeldsen into turn 1 on this lap. So as much as Kjeldsen tried to put the car out as wide as possible, he just couldn't keep McKee behind, which would put him now, what, 7 positions up, I think, for McKee. I don't know if you have that stat to show, but that is massive work. And he's 11. Jesus. And he's still going because he's hunting down Lopez ever so slightly, which you should look to the front. There's a bit of battling out the front, and it's going to be always contact between Sabrino, and that's going to put him out the front wing gone. And that's shaken up the entire grid. The Ferrari are able to stay ahead, but Rishan Jacobs puts himself into second place. And now Lopez might be sitting here going, I may be 8 tenths behind. I probably should now close up the gap because there's a podium here.
Yeah, that's a horrible time there for Sergio Sabrino. That is not what you want to see at all. Halliday comes off as equally as bad in that as well, goes down to 11th position. One of them had damage, and I believe it is Sabrino. I think he ended up losing a big chunk of his front left wing. So that's not going to help matters for the man who started this race on the front row and was pretty mercurial throughout the duration of qualifying, really. I don't know whether that's going to be race over for Sabrino, but I mean, if we look at the back of the field here, he is driving sorely amounts of slow. I think you said at the top of the show that damage in this year's game is going to really affect you, especially with the snappy nature of the car. And right here, we're seeing it. He is considerably slower than everybody else on the track. He is not going to be happy with Jan Halliday, who gets to race on, mind you. He's now just slotted in 11th behind Ian Van Oonen, and we know that he's got the pace to move up the field, so he may yet still find himself in a solid point-scoring position.
Yeah, we have to make the assumption that we are using regular damage and not simulation, so there's no side pod damage, and it's just taken the brunt of the side, hit the tyres, so it doesn't damage the car as for such. Though that being said, if we are running simulation damage, that would actually take a lot out of the tyre degradation, because if you run your tyres against the wall, you start to take away the degradation of that tyre. So it's a new feature that's been put into the 23 game, and something I think, and I'm voting, let's change these top tiers from regular to simulation damage and see how they perform.
Well, it's not our decision to make. As much as we'd love to see that level of like competitive racing, I think it would also get rid of a little bit of the bumping and grinding. I think when you run an online league, it's often difficult to have simulation damage because you can get a little bit of latency that ends up causing accidents. But, I mean, maybe if internet becomes less of a problem, maybe if it was server-based instead of peer-to-peer, we could look at that as an opportunity. Maybe it's something that can be tested as well. We're in the infancy of this game for the time being. We've still got plenty of settings that need to be looked at. But we've also got plenty of drivers that need to be looked at here now. Just 8 laps into the race. Fionn McKee's mercurial charge of now 13 positions is seriously something to keep our eyes on. Daniel Kjeldsen just half a second back from Fionn McKee as well, looking to try and make some progress onto the rear of Andre Lopez. They are closing him in. That gap was about 9/10 of a second just a few laps ago, but these medium tyres are going to start feeling the pain relatively soon.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the front here. The top 4 really close to each other, and it could be anyone's game to take here. Of course, McKee slowly catching up to this pack, but he's on a different strategy. So it seems like these hard tyres are holding up very nicely in terms of pace, but these mediums, I know it's very obvious to say, but they are superior, actually. There is a clear degradation difference between the two tyres. We're seeing how McKee is just finding the grip. He's able to push up to the back of this pack very nicely. We're already 9 laps in. Okay, we should be seeing the change, I said 14, maybe 16 to 20, as Rashan Jacobs is going to go down the inside of the Ferrari and take the lead of the race. Bit early to do it, but clearly Rashan thinks he's got some pace here.
Well, sometimes it can feel nice just to lead for a little while. You don't necessarily want to spend your entire race braking early and sitting in somebody's wheel tracks. It can often cause a little bit of a mistake. So let's get out in the lead for a bit, stretch my legs and see exactly what I've got. And I think on top of that as well, Tomas Gal saw Rashan sailing on by and thought, yeah, I'll have a piece of that. In the pit lane anyway, we've lost Menno de Bever as well. Unfortunately, he has dropped out of the session, so that brings our retirement count now up to 5. Sergio Sabrino and Louis Welch just 28 seconds from the back of the field. So given a safety car or a red flag, let's not discount that as an opportunity, they could be back within this one as well. So more time, more opportunities than ever to get back into races these days, especially in F1 23. But I'm looking at Tomas Gal here. You mentioned that earlier on that the third person in the queue often might be the one finding themselves the the beneficiary of some carnage that may occur up front. He's in the hot seat right now. He is bearing down on the back of Mirko Soriano. But is Mirko Soriano looking to make a move here on Rashan Jacobs? No, it was a bit of a fanning out there from Andre Lopez, and Tomas Gal has got it a bit wrong in towards turn 1 and turn 2. Now around the outside comes Fionn McKee on the medium tyres, trying to use that superior grip, which is starting to fall away. Now on the inside in towards turn 4, it's tight. It's tight, Fionn. Are you sure you want to stick your car there? They're basically locked into each other. Still side by side in towards turn 5, and there goes McKee. He's round, he's got a wheel on the grass, he's all kinds of wrong. He got it all twisted and out of shape, pushed off the racing line by Tomas Gal. They were locked in combat for about 4 corners there. It was great racing until it all ended up in tears.
Yeah, it's the problem with going aggressive and fighting it out. You are going to push each other into positions where one has to yield. Unfortunately, McKee decided not to yield, and that has just cost him such a brilliant run. And it's sad to see, but it's the nature of the beast. But we still got Kelson. Realistically, he's also gained a few positions here. He's not been the forefront of being his natural aggressive state. He's done one move and that's it. But again, he's on those medium tires. He might want a shot at this, shot at the front runners this time. But yeah, it's a bit annoying, and I think Theon McKee's just taking a 3-second time penalty as well. I think he might call quits there.
Yeah, and exactly on cue, he has done so. Now we're going to have
Look at
another rinse and
Lopez.
repeat here. I think it was getting a bit wrong for Soriano out of turn 1. And now Lopez is looking to try and hang it around the outside. But he learned from what Theon McKee did on the previous lap. He doesn't want a piece of that this time around. But that little engagement there, that little squabble between Soriano and Lopez has just given Roshan Jacobs a little bit more breathing room. Papa Pace out up the front. 0.8 of a second. It was 9. Of course, DRS is going to be active here down the back straight. It's not a particularly long back straight. The DRS isn't massively effective, but it is not, you know, you can't ignore it. It definitely is still there. But that gap in a minute, I'm sure, will close up when we get onto the front straight. I think Soriano has done enough on this lap to keep that gap just constant enough that he will get that DRS back. And the race should neutralise back out to where it was. Previously, I was looking at Soriano in towards turn 1. And he looked pretty comfortable. He was backing off. He was, you know, just lifting off the throttle and then braking a bit earlier in towards turn 1. He was quite comfortable just sitting in behind Roshan Jacobs. So we'll see whether he's going to opt for a move here. Andre Lopez just dipping out and showing a wheel down the inside just to see if there was anything that could maybe force another mistake out of Mirko Soriano. We've lost Haladej now into the pits. That leaves us with just 13 drivers on track. And we're only 12 laps in.
I want to kind of like take our attention away just very slightly. I want to talk about something, because you said about lifting and coasting, and that brought to my mind is the fuel about these cars. Now that's something that's become different in every single edition of the F1 games. I know that this year the cars are usually a little bit overfueled more than necessary. You don't have to lift and coast as much. So, and you also only had one setting. You go to the year before, you then have the fuel setting options. You could change it up. Now, I have not had the opportunity to play the new edition of 23, but I'm very intrigued to know how these drivers are feeling about the fuel. Are they able to go flat out and push as hard as they want? Or is the fact that Soriano doing this lifting and coasting is an indication that fuel's going to be a problem throughout this 23 series?
I think more than anything, lifting and coasting also just comes into ERS recharging. Obviously, we saw last year and in previous iterations of F1 esports titles that ERS and your battery usage really does come down to being one of the biggest factors in deciding a race, especially when you're in a DRS train as long as this one. And having an ERS advantage over your competitors definitely is helpful. And whilst you regain more ERS when you're inside of the ERS as somebody else because you have faster closing speed, more kinetic force goes through that energy recovery system. Lifting and coasting also helps with that as well because you're not on throttle the entire time. You're not deploying that battery nearly as much. Earlier braking will give you more. Tracks with heavy braking zones like turn 1 here, for example. All occasions in which you are likely to see hefty ERS recovery. And anything that can help with that will almost certainly be taken. These guys are trying to optimize their races, optimize their games, optimize their play styles in ways in which they can try and get the tiniest tenths of a second, hundredths of a second advantage in every which way that they can. And ERS is pretty much one of those things that you have to learn to optimize, you have to learn to manage. So let's do a quick ERS check-in. Got 70% battery on Mirko Soriano at the moment. We've got 94% of battery on Roshan Jacobs, Andre Lopez on 84, and it's 51 for Tomascal. Now, the medium runner of Daniel Kjeldsen sits on 57% worth of battery at the moment, and that basically sums it up for your protagonists at the front right now. A couple of people keeping their powder dry, just racing their race, most notably, of course, Roshan Jacobs in the lead. A couple of people doing a little bit of an in-between, like Mirko Soriano. And then a couple of drivers who've been taking it a little bit more aggressively, like Tomascal and Daniel Kjeldsen.
We're coming up to the point now because you talk about everything being calm, running their races. We are slowly approaching the pit stop window. So the earliest I would say would be lap 16. These guys would be coming in, and they could go all the way up to lap 20, depending on how it goes. But realistically, as racing usually is, the person at the front really decides when he wants to pit, and technically that could be considered the optimal time. A few drivers might go in early to see if they can create that undercut opportunity, but the question is, who's willing to take that risk? Coming on to lap 15, we're about one lap away from where I believe we should be pitting, but again, this is a new game, new dynamics, new tyres. Let's see what happens from here onwards.
Yeah, I think maybe we might want to be going a little bit longer, just based on how Daniel Kjeldsen hasn't been able to make it work. Anyway, Mirko Suriano has managed to slide it up the inside of Rishan Jacobs. Forget what we were talking about how this race was cooling off for a bit. It seems that they just want blood again. They're just totally okay to go toe-to-toe, blow for blow. And now Rishan Jacobs is not letting sleeping dogs lie. He's hounding Mirko Suriano up in towards turn 4. But it looks to me like Suriano's got him barking up the wrong tree here to continue that dog metaphor a little bit longer, because he's managed to drop him off the back of this now just by 0.3 of a second, no longer quite riding his gearbox. And it seems that Rishan Jacobs now is going to have to try and take his turn at trying to keep Suriano on that leash. Sorry, I just had to carry on with the dog stuff there. So it's just.
Oh no, that's fine. You were definitely barking up the wrong tree with those jokes, but nonetheless, Rishan won't back down here. From the races I've done with him, yeah, you overtake him, he ain't done. He's going to fight back. He might take his time to get to where he wants to be. He's going to plan it out, and then he's going to execute the plan. But at the moment, he's going to sit tight. He knows the pit stop window is coming up. Maybe that's the idea and the plan. And there you go. Kjeldsen coming in for the medium runners, lap 16. So I was right on one sense, but it is the medium runner that is going in at this point. And you can see again the Mercedes dipping out. But again, just making it present. I think he's trying to break the toe off Thomas Gal and prevent maybe an overtake down the inside.
Maybe, but he has done it quite a few times even when Gal wasn't close. So I don't know whether it is like a dirty air, quote-unquote, mechanic in the game in which it might overheat your tyres. You do see that occasionally in real life on hot race days when they're in close succession. They don't like to follow too closely, or they dip out of the dirty air being put off from behind another car, whilst of course the ground effect cars have less of that effect. Still quite prominent at closer distances, especially the heat off the back of another car. I don't know whether that's really a factor here though in F1 23. I'm yet to explore that mechanic in the game myself. Anyway, Andre Lopez may know more than I do. For the time being though, Rishan Jacobs, like you say, just going to take a breather, I think, and just calculate his way out of this one. I do know that Jacobs likes to lead. He likes to feel like he's got nobody else in front of him. Not really a fan of following particularly. So maybe it will just be an occasion here in which he'll just use that DRS to get in front again and just try and race his race. Thomas Gal now darts into the pit lane on lap 17. And there it is again. Jacobs pulls alongside, and well before the braking zone, he has got by Mirko Suriano. Also a gap being opened up now with Gal driving in towards the pit lane. Andre Lopez has a second behind to Zelenkovic. So a little bit more breathing room for the Mercedes driver.
Yeah, we've got to keep an eye on the timing board between P9 and P10. Has Gal been able to stay ahead of Kjeldsen? Because that's going to be a critical moment. There's Kjeldsen. He's got pass, but down into the braking zone. Yeah, that's clear as daylight. So Kjeldsen, he's actually done the undercut on to Thomas Gal, and that's another factor we have to come out with. You have to remember, the drivers will come out on colder tyres, about 70 degrees when they come out of the pit lane, and then they can start warming it up. Now, Kjeldsen is going to take a little bit longer because he's on those hard tyres, while the rest of them are running these medium tyres. So let's see what comes out of it, because Kjeldsen, actually, he's got a decent gap here. I've got a feeling, and this is just a gut feeling, Lopez, Suriano and Jacobs should be scared here.
Yeah, well, it seems that Rishan Jacobs has really taken the fight to them this time around. He pulled 0.9 of a second over the course of that lap, and Andre Lopez has elected to stay out on the track. Now, one thing you have to remember here, for Kjeldsen at the very least, is that now that he's on the hard tyres, the rest of his competitors will be on the medium tyres, which means they will have that tyre advantage. They will have that pace advantage. His advantage will come again later in the race very late in the race when his hard tyres have a little bit more pace left in them than those medium runners. So I will expect to see Tomascal start to catch up
Kelson's
towards
jumped.
Kelson, but Kelson has managed to jump not one, but he's now going to be fighting Rishan Jacobs in towards turn one, and with those cold medium Pirellis, he's not going to stand a chance. Kelson, at the moment, takes the net race lead. This is quite the effort from Kelson, but you cannot expect Rishan Jacobs to let this one go easily. As soon as these medium tyres are up to temperature, he'll be right there. But there is Tomascal, who of course pitted a lap before these guys. He's going to be looking mighty spicy for this one here too. He's going to have a bit of a kick to him as they come up the hill here. Maybe we'll take the opportunity to try and fire one down the inside of Jacobs in towards turn 10. He'll, of course, have the better drive with the tyres being much more in the window than his competitors. But for the moment, not going to pull out of that slipstream as Lopez, just ahead on track, pulls into the pits. We'll see where he comes out, but I feel that he's going to lose out massively to these guys here. Maybe that lap he'll have dumped some battery. Maybe he'll have done something to give himself just a tad more breathing room. But for the time being, they're going to round the final corner now. Kjeldsen leads the field, but not for long, I imagine. DRS open. Here comes Jacobs. He's up the inside, and he is clean past. Now, will that be another opportunity here for Tomascal to try and look up the inside of Kjeldsen? It will. He makes it work. Those medium tyres much better on the brakes now. They're in the window. Andres Franco on those mediums too, showing that they can be the faster tyre, and currently are. Kjeldsen is not going to let this one go, though. He's like a dog with a bone. He's aggressive, exactly like you said. He's still riding the gearbox of Tomascal, but through the corners where mechanical grip is superior, he ends up losing out in time to Tomascal. So that is going to be that for Kjeldsen, I think, this time around. He's got to be worried now about Suriano behind, and the rest of these medium runners. They're all looking really, really racy for him.
As I mentioned before, there seems to be a massive difference on tyre compounds this year, and it's clear to show because Kjeldsen is a fast driver. He was putting in the pace, he was demonstrating he's quick, but soon as he's on those hard tyres, if everything just drops. I would love to sit down when I have a computer and just run through these lap times and see how different it is between the two compounds. Because right now, once again, Siriano now is got the opportunity, gonna go down the inside, and that looks like an easy work for himself. And a bit further back, Lopez is also under pressure. That's gonna be pushing the McLaren right to the inside. They're gonna fight it into turn one. He's gonna hold it, but has to go over the escape road, and they're still going. The Mercedes just stays ahead. There's an AlphaTauri going wide. That's Svenchik, Tumer going wide.
What
and now
on earth is
contact
that?
into the wall. Is this going to be a virtual safety car? Will this bring out a red flag? Because that's right at the firing line.
What were you thinking, Dzelewski? That was absolutely maniacal. He just fired a ballistic missile up the inside in towards turn 4. That looked so unbelievably silly from our point of view. There's the safety car. That may actually give a really nice advantage to Andrew Karapi, who didn't stop. But what on earth was that from Dzelewski? That looked absolutely insane. I don't know whether he missed his braking point or locked up or had some other kind of issue where he couldn't turn in, but it just looked like he drove straight into the side of him. Immediately in turn 1, when Dzelewski was up the inside of Lopez, they both went wide. Lopez had to go off track. That was really, really strange. It was so aggressive from Anton Dzelewski. Lopez, I feel, the victim in all of that, but that will be up to the stewards to decide. But good God, what an absolute mess up the hill there in turn 4.
That was a mess. It was a good fighting initially, but when you take that risk, you have to calculate it. You can't just dive it in there, hope for the best. It doesn't. F1 doesn't work like that. The rules state it is a non-contact sport, so you can't launch it in. And unfortunately, when you just get a bit, when the blood is rushing, your heart's racing, you do make these silly mistakes. And it does happen, and unfortunately, this has cost him not only his race, but other people's race. This has now meant that there is 9 drivers out of this race, and we are left with 11.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of people who have just gone into the pit lane and just kind of just retired. I think I can understand it. It's a social race. Ultimately, we're here for fun. It's a little bit, it's not meaningless as per se, but it's like good practice and whatnot. And if you get put out of the race early, It's not really going to be too fun to drive around with nobody for 21 laps until there's a safety car that might come and rescue your situation. But with this grid being so tight and so together, it really does end up like making it very difficult to recover through tough positions. If you get knocked out early on and you have to take an early pit stop, you're 28 seconds down, you're preying on a safety car, and if it does come, then you're going to have to wait to try and pick your way through a already very quick field, all of which will have DRS, and you have no necessarily clear advantage over. So anyway here for Rishan Jacobs, he is going to be pacing the field. We'll see how long this safety car stays out for. I'd imagine with an impact like that straight into the barriers at turn 4, that is going to be a couple of laps at least based on how last year's safety car system worked. I don't know how it is this year, whether there are any changes made to it, but we'll soon see. But the race has been neutralised. 11 cars in it. And Louis Welch and Sergio Sobrino, 2 drivers who previously demonstrated they had the pace, are right back in this one.
Also to note, Jacobs and Thomas Gal are both named drivers that I said to keep an eye on. 1 and 2. Siriano still holding quite nicely in the 3rd spot, but I feel that that's not over yet. I feel he's going to fight his way up here. But Kelson, this has actually got against him massively. Being on those hard tyres, he's got to warm them up a lot more work needing to be done. And having the pack all bunched together, and especially how long this Barcelona straight is, he's a goner. He's gonna be a goner, and he's gonna slowly drop down this pack. So not the situation he wanted here.
Yeah, he's absolutely gonna have to try and keep DRS. He's gonna have to throw the kitchen sink at trying to keep DRS on the cars in front. That'll be all of his battery, all of his talent, all of his tyres. So that's going to be a really tough one for Kelson. But let's take a look actually at the tyre situation. Got a couple of people here on tyres that are considerably newer. For example, Karapi, who managed to make his way into the pit lane as the safety car came out. He's on 1 lap of mediums. There are a couple of people who have taken this opportunity to whack on the red tyres, the soft tyres. That is Tycho Hardy and Sergio Sobrino. Now, I don't know how long these soft tyres last in this year's game. If this were F1 22, I'd be saying that was suicidal, because they really did not last a very long time in that game whatsoever. And maybe a couple of laps, especially on a track like Spain, and you would be, well, the goose would be cooked, ultimately. But Sobrino here has taken a risk, and he'll be seeing what he can do with it. Louis Welch took the opportunity to go in for fresh mediums as well. So this will be a feisty little restart here, as the safety car has come on in, and now Rishan Jacobs pulls the pin. Off he goes. He tries and makes the break from Tomas Gal behind. He's already got 0.4 of a second, but Gal will be in his wheel tracks. Ian Van Unen, track limits penalty, unfortunately, on the exit of turn 13. So now, Mirko Siriano also looking mightily aggressive up the back of Tomas Gal. Not going to go for the move. Everybody holds position for the time being, but it's not going to stay that way, one would imagine. Andres Franco and Andrew Karapi are going side by side. Franco's gone all the way around the outside. I believe we've just lost Karapi, and then Sobrino and Louis Welch have come to blows at the back of the field as well. They were both off track there in turn 3. So more carnage happening here for this social race. Rishan Jacobs back up the front though, still holds position, holds line astern, and keeps himself with a 0.3 of a second buffer. DRS, of course, won't be activated right away, so we'll see whether Jacobs is going to opt to use some of this battery that he's got at his disposal to break the backs of Tomas Gal, Siriano, and Kelson behind.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he's using much of it. I think that's just natural deployment there. So Jacobs, again, not using a lot with 83% battery.
Oh, and I think the internet has come back for Reese. He goes to Canada and he still can't escape it. He has fully gone. And his camera's turned off me and everything. So I guess we'll just take it from here. Anyway, Rishan Jacobs, front of the field, cruising along, making sure that he's got this one in the bag. Of course, maybe not though. Tomas Gal closing, but not closing quick enough. His laptop's dead, I think it is. Never mind. Nice. Okay, that'll be Reese gone. Everyone say goodbye to Reese. He is just gone. I don't know when he'll be back. Anyway, Rishan Jacobs is cruising at the front of the field. Of course, still under threat for the time being. Mirko Siriano still looking looming, looking threatening here there in P3. It's holding for the moment. These guys won't be wanting to do anything too crazy in these first couple of laps since the safety car restart. They'll want to try and let it settle down, stretch their legs with the pace, and then when we get a couple more laps deep, maybe that's when they'll look to try and go a bit deeper with the aggression, a bit deeper with the braking zones, a bit deeper with their ERS deployment. Who knows? Oh, okay, that was a bit of lag there, I'm going to guess. Rubber banding from Tomascal, because that looked exceptionally weird. I think he did lose a bit of time, so it might have been a rear snap involved in all that as well, and that surely will be inviting Mirko Soriano in for a little bit of an aggressive run. No battery deployment just yet from Soriano. He's not looking like he wants to go for it. DRS now will be enabled this lap, so we might see a little bit more overtaking with that DRS assistance. It's definitely clear to see now as well with that slight bit of a gap, a bit of daylight emerging between Soriano and Kjeldsen, that Jacobs, Gal, and Soriano have a bit more pace on those medium tyres. Timo Zelenkovic, for example, is now going to be closing in on that hard tyre running Daniel Kjeldsen, and we'll see and keep an eye on exactly how that one transpires. For the time being, though, Soriano riding the gearbox here of Tomascal, looking like he has a little bit more pace in hand on these medium tyres. Now, potentially up the run through turn 9, if you can get a good exit. No, it seems that Gal just had a little bit more through turn 7 and 8 there. Whether that is like setup dependent or maybe just something, a little bit of an edge that Gal has in that area of the track. Could even be a little bit of battery usage. As we see, there is quite a big disparity between Soriano and Gal at this stage in the race. 83% plays 52 with Rashan Jacobs up front, barely touching that overtake button at all. And anyway, with DRS now open, we're going to see exactly how much battery these guys are willing to burn. There it goes. Soriano going through a lot of his deployment right here to get this move done on Tomascal down in towards turn 1. In fact, they've gone past Jacobs as well for the lot of them. It's clear. It's a good run. They're keeping it tight on the exit. All drivers trying to keep their noses clean. They don't want to go out like many of their competitors have done so this race, but that's not going to deter Jacobs. Up the inside into turn 4. He's blocked off a little bit by Soriano. Gal still has the wider line. Jacobs still keeping his nose in there, but we'll switch back left now, where Jacobs has to go round the outside again, and that's going to be the longer way around the corner. That's not going to give him the opportunity he was looking for to hold on to that P2 position. Soriano takes back control of the lead. Gal ends up in second place, and now Jacobs is left wanting here in P3. Up the hill, down the back straight with the DRS activated. You won't see a great deal of overtaking here, but it's not going to stop Jacobs from showing a wheel. Now in towards the final sector. Long radius corners. If you've got a bit more grip, you can potentially try and show a wheel up the inside. But all this fighting, all this defending from Gal is giving just that opportunity for Soriano to have a little bit of breathing room. Of course, with that DRS, it is going to evaporate, but not if Jacobs has anything to say about it. The overtake already on. He's looking for the move here on Tomascal. He pulls to the inside. Gal also having straight line speed in the wheel tracks, but he's going to go past Soriano this time. Gal gets blocked off by Soriano, and now it's a mirror signal maneuver of exactly what happened this time 1 lap ago. These guys are scrapping, and in all of that, we somehow lost Daniel Kjeldsen. I didn't see what happened, but he's gone all the way back to P8. Timo Zelenkovic now joins the back of this pack in the other AlphaTauri. He's going to be part of this fight very shortly. As you can see, though, Gal used almost all of his battery defending from those previous 2 moves from Soriano and from Jacobs. They're both on the hunt. Jacobs, of course, now in the lead. I don't think the lead is really where you want to be right now. The DRS down that front straight just looks so strong. You can overtake 2 people in one with it if you don't fan out and go 3 wide. It is looking like an opportunity now, though, for Soriano to potentially take the lead back from Jacobs. It's going to have to be a little bit more reserved here from Tomascal. Surely he's going to have to try and play his battery wisely. Hold on to that for a little bit longer. Just maybe try and stretch it as best he can. Either way, Soriano, 0.3 of a second back. We've seen overtakes from way further back in this race already on this DRS straight. Open the DRS, and here we go. Soriano going to be charging down on the back of Rashan Jacobs with 5 laps remaining. Is he going to look to make the move this time around? He's going to show him a wheel, but ultimately the early back off into turn 1 allows Jacobs to continue leading this race for a while. I think Soriano here is playing the long game, wants to make sure that when he does make that move on the Dutchman ahead, that he's not going to have an opportunity to respond to it. Jacobs, for the time being, will just continue on. But what I'm interested in here is Timo Zelenkovic and Ian Van Unen. They are the jokers in this deck. They are the fly in the ointment. They're the people who haven't been racing with these guys up the front of this race for the last 28 laps. They've been battling. They've been the journeymen who have been in the wars, toughing it out with one another. And now they're finally back up on the leading trio. How can they make this work? The quintet up front. Sabrino also not to be discounted from this either. I believe he's still on the soft tyres, so if they're still operating, maybe if these guys continue scrapping, we can invite a sixth car into the melee. There we go. Got there in the end. Two very different words that mean roughly the same thing. Big off track there from Tomas Gal. I don't think that's going to affect him too much, but obviously keep an eye on whether that 3-second penalty comes to pass. Suriano a bit further back this time around from Jacobs. The DRS, though, extremely strong here at Barcelona in towards turn 1. Just 0.2 of a second, the deficit. I have a feeling that if he wanted to go for a move here, Suriano could do. I think he's just keeping his powder dry. You can see Battery, he's holding on to it. Jacobs has about 20% less to play with. We'll see whether that ends up being a factor as we move on through the race. Suriano just sitting pretty here in P2. Further back, Andres Franco, who was at one time or another a fastest man on track, is up to the back of Sergio Sabrino, who is on those soft tyres. Sabrino may be struggling at this point in the race. I don't like I said, I don't really know how good these soft tyres are in F123 yet. If last year was anything to go by, they are going to be finished in just a few laps. And Andres Franco will probably be looking to try and get by Sergio Sabrino in the next lap or two, just to try and maybe have a run at the guys in front who may be lapping a little bit slower without the clean air. Already, though, it's down to 1.8 seconds, and now we're going to go towards the front of the field to see if there's going to be an overtake on. It seems that Suriano, again, a little bit too far back, and that little gap that Rishan Jacobs is able to pull on the cars behind him is just keeping him protected for the now. Mascal, of course, not able to drive up onto the rear of Mirko Suriano just as he would have wanted, and the same with Zelenkovic. This is starting to space out a bit. These guys are just keeping their cool. You can see the battery percentage for every one of these drivers in this 5-car train pretty low apart from the front two. 20% rough thereabouts or less for Gal, Zelenkovic and Van Unen. Up front, Jacobs with about 50%, but the real story here is Mirko Suriano with 70% of his battery remaining. He has 20% over Jacobs, and that could prove key in these final 3 laps. So, as Suriano turns in to turn 10, he needs to make sure that this time around he's at least a 1/10 of a second, maybe 2/10 of a second closer to Jacobs on the exit of this final sector. But unfortunately, once again, 0.6 of a second gap opened up from the run from turn 10 to turn 13. Jacobs' car just dialed in throughout that final sector on these medium tyres. Mascal having a little bit of a look, staying in the wheel tracks of Mirko Suriano, but nothing going just yet. Suriano, I feel, backed off maybe a tad early there, just didn't want to run into the back of Jacobs or make his presence too felt just yet. Just keeping this mental battle alive as well as the battle on track. Love that shot, the long radius shot through turn 4. Now run down in towards turn 5. No moves being made just yet. And Andres Franco further back, or check in with him. Still yet to get by Sergio Sabrino. And those soft tyres are giving up now, as you can see. The gap is getting worse and worse as the laps go on to Van Unen in front. It was previously down to 1.8 seconds. We're now up to 2.6. It's lost 0.8 of a second in the last few laps alone. So those soft tyres are cooked and finished. It's now time in which Franco, if he wants to recover this race from what was a pretty respectable qualifying for him, he needs to have a good run here at getting into the P6 and looking to try and get a run on the guys in front, because they are surely about to start battling once again. Jacobs has pulled a little bit of a gap. It's a 1/10 of a second less than it was last time we crossed the start-finish straight, but still, I don't think going to be enough to entice Suriano for a move here on the penultimate lap. As I say that, he does show Jacobs the wheel this time. Maybe a little bit of a dress rehearsal for what we're going to see next lap on the final lap. Further back, Franco has made that move on Sabrino. The soft tyres really are cooked now, and he's not going to be able to make any more progress in this race. He's only going to fall backwards in terms of time, but I don't think Karapi is going to be catching him in a hurry Anywho, Jacobs up front, now going to have to drive a very intelligent last 2 laps. Got to try and keep the charging Ferrari, the prancing horse, at bay. It's certainly going to be looking for him. It's certainly going to try and throw its nose down the inside somewhere. But where is where Jacobs has to try and defend. He doesn't want to try and defend in clean air, for example, in towards turn 10. There's not really been too many overtakes this race, so you don't want to be defending too much and losing yourself a wealth of time. But maybe in towards turn 1 on this lap, this is where you're going to deploy almost all of your battery. But there's such an advantage for Suriano with the battery, with the ERS. It looks like it will be Suriano's race to lose as we get onto the front straight. What is there going to be offered from Jacobs as a defense? Suriano is so much closer this time around as we come onto the final lap here of the Spanish Grand Prix. It is going to be Suriano who tries to make the overtake on towards Jacobs. It's going to be Gal also having a look at it, but Suriano's made it work. Jacobs sticking with him for the time being, but where is the opportunity to try and make this overtake again? He's trying to keep it tight in towards turn 3, sticking right there with him, but he's got no battery to play with. You see the rear light blinking away on the back of that Alfa Romeo. Meanwhile, Suriano has so much more battery to play with. 33%. He's going to use it to try and leap away from the Alfa Romeo over the course of this lap. Just a couple of corners, well, more like 10 corners to go, really, before Suriano takes what will be a great start to his F1 23 season. Of course, not the season itself yet, but it's a social race. Fills you with confidence nonetheless. Jacobs pushing on, but it's not going to be enough. I'm sure of it now. Suriano has done enough. He's got enough battery. He's timed his move to perfection. He comes into turn 10 as Sabrino gets a 3-second time penalty. He's got enough of a gap. I don't think Jacobs will have anything for him. I don't think Gal will find an answer, and it will be surely now no more overtaking opportunities through turn 12 and turn 13. It is going to be Mirko Suriano to come home and win the Spanish Grand Prix, followed by Rishan Jacobs, Tamas Gal, Timo Zelenkovic and Ian Van Unen. It is Andres Franco, who had a horrible start to the race, who recovers to P6. Sergio Sabrino, who got knocked down the order early, into 7th. Daniel Kjeldsen makes those hards run in towards P8. Karapi P9. Tycho Hardy in P10, or at least he will be when he crosses the line. And Louis Welch, a social race to forget, as he will cross the line. Last of all active drivers on track in P11. It is 9 DNFs, a safety car in the mix, an absolutely chaotic race in many occasions. But Mirko Suriano in the Ferrari reigns victorious. Great work from Suriano to keep his powder dry. Raced a very mature and level-headed race from start to finish. Really quite the impressive bout there for Suriano to come home and take that top step of the podium. Of course, well fought though by Rishan Jacobs. A really good start to the season for him after what was a difficult title challenge last season against Lillian in Tier 3. So we'll see whether that starts off to be a good omen for Rishan Jacobs or a good omen for Mirko Suriano. The Italian takes the top step honours in the red Ferrari and takes the first race of the season in F1 23. What a great year it's looking to be. The cars look great. The game feels great. It looks and sounds good too. I'm excited for more, and I hope you'll join us here at PSGL for more racing. If you want to watch more racing, by the way, there is Lobby 2 currently live. They'll be finishing qualifying very shortly. So hop onto the YouTube channel in the link in, well, just click the button below, I guess, and you'll be able to find the other live stream for Lobby 2 of the social races going on this evening. You can go ahead and check that out. Anyway, I've been George Bray. Reese is unfortunately not going to be able to say his goodbyes. It's really been a pleasure to bring you this one today. I hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you another time for more PSGL F1 23.
done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the GOAT is back. Jan Ortmeier wins the US Grand Prix in a stunning Grand Prix.
Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though.